Top leaders from the European Union have arrived in India on a two-day mission to broaden trade and diplomatic ties in the face of growing US protectionism. The President of the European Commission has hailed India as the bloc's most trusted ally. Ursula von der Leyen noting that Europe stands for openness, partnership and outreach. Ms. von der Leyen, along with her team of commissioners, will meet with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi tomorrow and will hold discussions with the Trade Minister as well. Brussels and New Delhi are widely expected to outline key areas for deeper cooperation under their strategic partnership, with trade high on the agenda. The EU is reportedly planning to urge India to cut back on relatively high tariffs on cars and wine to boost trade. The bloc is India's largest trade partner in goods, with trade hitting close to $126 billion last year. Its calls for lower duties follow US President Donald Trump's threats to impose reciprocal tariffs earlier this month. And more, Neha Poonia reports live from New Delhi. Neha, it's just a two-day visit, but a lot is at stake. What can we expect to come out of just these 2 days?
Well, the short answer is some sort of demonstration that tangible progress can and will be made. These trade talks started back in 2008, and in the last 17 years or so, we've seen several governments and EU commissioners claim that this is the time that a trade pact will finally be signed. But, a lot of differences remain. But experts have been speaking to say there is a sense of urgency from India to escalate, these talks. And this is happening against the backdrop of those reciprocal taxes that President Trump has threatened to levy against India. Which is why earlier this week you had India's trade minister meeting his British counterpart. Now India and the country's prime minister will be hosting the EU delegation. Interestingly, the demand from the European Union to India is the same as what the Trump administration has been wanting India to do, which is to cut back on tariffs. The EU specifically wanting India to reduce tariffs on cars and alcohol, which is as high as 100 to 150%. It also wants more access for agricultural produce from the EU to land here in India. That's something that many agricultural bodies have resisted. India, in turn, is also looking to diversify some of its exports in the fields of textiles, aluminium and steel, as well as get more mobility for its skilled labor. Many analysts have been speaking to say that, from India's point of view, there is this threat, of course, of the US reciprocal tariffs, which could cost Indian businesses as much as $7 billion annually, which is why these trade talks with the UK and the EU are important. But also there is a difference, experts say, in how the Modi government has handled the question of free trade agreements compared to previous governments. Last year, Prime Minister Modi signed a trade pact with 4 European nations. India has also signed something with Australia recently. So there is optimism that there will finally be some sort of movement on this front.
Neha, movement possibly driven by the immediate threat of reciprocal tariffs, but longer-standing concerns that are shared by both the EU and India about de-risking from China. Is that likely to give a greater push to finally get this free trade deal over the finish line?
Absolutely. A lot of areas of convergence there. When it comes to China, this is something that India has been pitching to the world for several years now. We saw during the last Trump term, India tell the world that, it could become the global manufacturing hub for many Western companies. And we have seen post-pandemic many American companies pivot at least part of their supply lines to India and export from here. Prime Minister Modi, is well known for making this pitch at every conversation he has with any world leader, where he's telling them to make in India and export from here. And that's quite likely the pitch that the Indian Trade Minister will make to the European Union as well. Reminding them that India can help meet that need when it comes to, de-risking from China and pivoting supply lines away from Beijing. Of course, the other area of convergence when it comes to the bloc and India are security concerns in the Indo-Pacific. The EU also increasingly looking at India as a balancing power in the region to counter China's dominance. And that's going to be another area that the talks are going to focus on.
Neha Poonia there, thanks. Looking talking to us from New Delhi, looking at what's driving this European pivot to India.